Alright, I went ahead and hung the door back on. I've got all 4 bolts in it now just so that it's tight in every spot on the front of the door, so I can make sure everything's going to be aligned. Nothing's going to change when I add those other 2 bolts. I put top and bottom earlier when I was just checking the front of it, but I got all 4 now. I had to twist the back of the door just a little bit. It was a little bit out up here and a little far in at the bottom, so I just twisted the door this way. That's got that back here okay. And that back edge is perfectly fine. I'm going to leave it alone, most likely. But in here, this is where the skin, the door frame was not perfectly in the perfect position. You can see how it's out a little bit right here. That's where it just had a little bit of a tiny dent right there in it. And then right in here is out as well. So what I'm going to do is probably take my dolly or a short piece of 2x4 and just tap this in until I get it right. And right up here on this edge, you can probably see that it's curved out just a little bit right on that peak. So you have to tap that edge down just a little. And that's probably just from my hammer work in that little recess. Right in here, I need to actually take this out a little bit. I'll take the fender back off and come back from the back side. May just take the slide hammer and just tap on it. If I pull too hard on it, I'll actually put a curl in it right here. I'm just going to knock it out just enough to meet up with the fender. You can see it's a little bit out right there. It's catching. No big deal though. Tap that spot in. That can be primed out, and tap that down just to match this curve. Essentially, I'll just have to prime the front. Normally I end up priming at least one or more of the edges every time I do this, but the bottom and the back are going to be fine to leave, but I'm going to have to tap these around and prime just that front end, front 5 or 6 inches there, so I can come back and block everything smooth, get my hammer marks out from where I'm having to straighten this up. If the frame didn't have any damage, I wouldn't have to do any of this. I could probably just leave it and paint it, but since the frame got damaged, I'm going to have to do that. There's no way to get it perfect before you put the skin on. I'm just guessing because I have to match the frame to the fender and then put it on and see where I'm at. But I got it real close to where I think I can still adjust it and not have to put any body filler in it. Fender fits pretty well. Got it in the position it's going to stay in. So I'll have to pull it back off to pull that section of the door out. But essentially that should be it. I'll test fit it one more time after I'm done doing that, and then pull the door back off later and do the jamb now that I know I'm okay with the position and fit in the front of it. Alright, I've got the door mounted again and got the fender on it. Went ahead and threw the headlight into the bumper just to see how everything's going to fit. Everything's looking great. Bumper went on, no problem. So I think what I'm going to do is, I have very little work to do on this front door edge. It's just about, I'd say 95%. It's not ever going to be perfect without another door because I've got an aftermarket fender, OEM skin here, and a damaged frame. So I've got it close enough that it's never going to really matter. Close enough that I'm okay with it. It's probably better than a lot of shops would leave it. But they would have just put a door on it anyway. Somebody asked me why I put a skin on it and why it's not just faster and cheaper. It is faster to put a door on it, but when you put a door on it, you're going to lose this VIN label right here that matches the rest of them. Try to focus on that. So if I put another door on it, it would have a different VIN, because I would have to leave that for the inspection. They'd want to see that. And I have to prove that it's off another salvage vehicle, not stolen. So if I got another door, even a brand new door, that would be missing from Honda. So now that I've got the original door on here, you can see inside here, you really can't tell it was ever done except for the difference in the color of this foam. If I could get that brown foam, it would be pretty much undetectable. But that's why I save the door and do the skin, even though it's a lot of work. I save this label here So when I go to resell the car, if anybody's looking at VIN labels, then it's got the original door, so that right there will match all the other panels. Plus, I like the challenge, and it saves me from having to completely transfer everything from the door to another one if I had an empty shell. And also, I don't have to paint the entire jamb. I just paint up to the inner seal. So I think I'm just gonna, when I epoxy the inside edge, so that I've got to put the seam sealer over some primer. So I've got to epoxy the inside edge where I hemmed it. And I'm just going to come around, since I sanded through this peak line on the outside edge to make it fold better. I'm going to sand this back with 180 and just take all the E-coat off. And that'll polish out a little bit of damage on the edge. And I may file some of it if I can't get it all out with a sander. And then I'll come back with 400, come out a little bit further. And I'll just put maybe 2 coats of primer out about 6 inches over that epoxy. Just give me something to sand. That epoxy's not very thick. When I go back to sand it to prep it for paint, I'll go right through it. It's looking good. I'm just going to go ahead and I might just go ahead and fix this spot on the hood, because I'll have some primer out for that, and that way I can just spray it over that. And I'll end up working on the back door back there in the quarter later on. I'm just trying to get all this done. What I might do is just go ahead and paint this. And I may just go ahead and blend my color into that door once I get that area fixed back there. But for now, I'm just going to focus on getting the front end and the door and the fender painted. All right, I've pulled the door back off. Well, bumper, fender, and the door, just so I could get it off. I had to take all that off. I'm going to start the paint work and the seam sealer on the door here. I've got this masked off right over the holes for the seal, just to the outside of those holes, all the way around. Probably see one somewhere in here. Maybe not. Yeah, there's one there. I don't know if you can see that or not, but just right past the hole. Right behind there's the hole for the seal. Just right past it, so no paint goes inside the door. And that seal will hide my paint edge. I've scuffed everything with a red Scotch-Brite. And I've sanded out all this with 180, all the E-coat, and where I had the hammer marks and things on it, I just sand that out with 180. And I'll run the seam sealer pretty close to the edge, so that'll cover everything up. Don't want to go too crazy with straightening out that hem, getting it smooth. Like right down in these areas where I've got some pits in it from the hammer, I'll just run the seam sealer right across on top of that, right up to the edge of the door. And right in here where the door doesn't actually overlap, this was all full of seam sealer anyway, so I'll just come back with sealer and fill that in. Once I get the epoxy on this bare metal, I'll come back and I'll tape about a 1/4 to 3/8 wide line in here, tape on either side, and I'll come back and fill that in with seam sealer, tool it flat, and then pull the tape. And it'll be a pretty smooth bead. So this is prepped and ready to go. I just need to mask all this. I put some tape over the VIN sticker here just in case anything blows past my tape and paper here, it won't get on the VIN sticker. And I'm going to hang it on the rack here so that I can spray some primer all the way around these edges, and maybe or some of the epoxy when I do this around the edge, a couple inches. I've also got the front of this prepped inside here. I've smoothed all this out where I do all the hammer work. I'll show you that when I get it on the rack, but I want to be able to do the epoxy on the back and the front at the same time, so I'll hang it on the rack and I can do all that with it up there. Okay, I've got the door on the rack ready to prime. I'm not going to prime the entire area with epoxy. I'm just going to hit these probably outer inch or two. Just basically the bare metal is all I need to hit, and the places I'm going to put the seam sealer. Going up to the next seam. Actually, I need to put some more tape right in there. There's another step in the seam there. Got some newspaper stuffed up in the corner here just to keep it out when I come out to the front here, to keep the primer from getting on the window track and everything, and through that hole. A little difficult to get to all this with the spray gun, but this way I can do it all at one time. I can just turn the spray gun down like an aerosol can, come in here and just spray that edge, go around this bar, hit that, and do the rest of it the same way. Once that's cured up, tomorrow I'll put the seam sealer on it, I'm gonna wait till all the primer's dry so I can take the door back off and lay it down. I gotta lay it down for the seam sealer, or that seam sealer will just run everywhere. So I'm gonna get the epoxy around the hem flange, and also I dollied this edge down over here where the molding goes. So I'm gonna epoxy that and let that overspray on this top edge, and that won't get any paint, so I've got to put something there, because when I go to paint the outside of the door, I'm going to back mask this, and that won't get any paint on it. So I'm going to put a couple coats of epoxy on it when I do this. That'll be all it'll get. Got this prep for paint. Went ahead and just did it all because I needed to go back through here a few inches with the 400 grit on the DA to get this primer to feather in. I'm going to spray the epoxy on the back side first. Then I'll come around with the epoxy and put it over the first couple inches, just over this bare metal. Then I'm going to put 2 coats of 2K urethane over the top of that on the front of the door. So now anything that lands on the door will stick since I've prepped the whole thing. Got one little spot here where I cut through it. There's a small little dent there from setting it on the rack, I guess. And I worked that out with a PDR tool and then just sanded it down. It's going to be fine with a little bit of primer. I don't want to put any filler right there. It'll just be a little extra primer. I'm going to give it a good wipe down. This is just has been blown off to get the dust. So I'm going to go ahead and get the primer, or the epoxy primer, ready to go. I mixed it about 45 minutes ago, almost an hour ago. And it needed to sit up for at least 30 minutes. I've got it inside the house to stay warm so it can set up a little faster. I'm going to get the epoxy on, and then after about an hour I can put the primer on the outside on top of that. I've got the jamb ready to do the seam sealer. I put a run of 1/4 inch fine line tape on either side of the hem where I'm going to seal it. And I've got an extra piece of tape over here just so that whenever I tool it out it doesn't get on the door frame. Don't need any over here because this is overlapping the edge. And down here in these little valleys I've got it wrapped around and stuck so it won't lift. Right in here where the 2 pieces meet and cross, I just went around this and cut a radius in it. Factory actually runs a bead and they come back and they wipe it that direction and smooth it out. I'm going to fill that in. I may take a spreader and just wipe it back just like that, like they did, depending on what it looks like. But I'll still have an edge in it here. I'll go to pull this as soon as I get it on there while it's wet. That'll leave me a nice edge in the sealer, and then after that I can come back and wipe it and try to soften that edge that's in it. Just one of those little details that may or may not matter. We'll see what I decide when I get it on there, what it looks like. I'm going to come all the way around up to the top and fill in this gap. And I've also got a couple places in here that need some sealant, right up against here, that pocket, little spot there, and then right there in the front. I'm going to go ahead and put that on first and then come back and finish this so that I can go ahead and pull the tape as soon as I get it on there. Not have to do anything else. I'm going to get the sealant out, get going on this. Alright, here's the final product. I got the tape pulled off. I didn't do anything to this corner like I was saying. I might come back and wipe it, but by the time I got all the way around, I had to actually switch to a new tube also, so it took a few minutes. So by the time I got from there all the way to the other end, this was hardening up on me. So what I did was when I applied it, I got all the way down to this corner, and then I went ahead and pulled the tape from up there all the way down, pulled this tape, and just pulled it back onto here. And it was still connected since it was one run. So I just set it up here, and they were coming off here, you know, 2 pieces of tape. And then I reapplied this edge, got that on there, went ahead and tooled it flat, and then I pulled the rest of the tape up and dropped it here. So that's all the tape that was running around the edge. I got a little bit on the front here, like I was saying. Put some right there. It's a little bit hard to see. Some right there in the corner, and then in this front corner. That's all going to be behind the mirror, so I just kind of flattened it out into the gaps and not too worried about the finish of it. But this is going to be visible. I'm going to let this sit here for about 30 minutes. It's pretty cool in here. It's in the 50s. Probably not even 60 in here. It's about 15 degrees outside today. We've had a really, really cold winter this year. So I'm running the heater for a little while. I warmed the door up before I put it on. I'll let it sit here for a little while and maybe run the heat a few more minutes in a little while right before I get ready to spray the color on it. I went ahead and scuffed all the epoxy, at least where I was going to put that, and now I'm going to go ahead and let that sit 30 minutes, and everything else is still sanded from before. And I can spray color directly on all this. Get this thing cleared, let it sit till the weekend. It's Wednesday right now, so that'll give it a good 3 days to, about 3 days to set up, so I'll put it back on the car. The paint won't stick to the seal. And I'll have the car sealed up. I'll get the glass and all back in it, so if I need to set it outside, it'll be okay to set it out in the rain. If I need to get something else in here, I'll be painting this next. Alright, the paint's done. Got the masking pulled off. Color matches pretty well. I used some old leftover base coat from a GM truck and added a little bit of a darker maroon from an Infinity. Actually, a little too slick here in the front. The factory didn't have near that much paint on it, but just went ahead and did the same thing all the way around. But the brake line was right in there, right below the holes for the seal. So this thing's done. Let this dry for a couple of days and we'll hang it back on the car and get the seal back on it and all that, so that I can get everything fit one more time, make sure it's going to seal right and fit. And this thing will be sealed up once I get the glass in it, except for these holes here, but I can tape that up if I need to leave it outside. I got to leave the mirror off so I can paint the outside of it later. I'll probably paint the door on the car for sure, and may just hang the fender off and paint it with the bumper. That way I don't have to mask it off, and I can do the jamb of the fender at the same time as the outside. Be back when I get ready to paint the outside of this stuff. Next thing I got to do is do the body work here on this quarter so that I can paint the side. What I'm going to do is paint the fender and bumper off the car, but I'll do the door and, well, both doors, and then blend back just into here, just a little ways, for the paint that I have to do on the car. That'll just give me these 3 panels and across the roof rail and down the rocker, all in one shot. For right now, I'm just going to go ahead and get the wheel off, get it lifted up, and we'll try to push this out. So I've just got to close this gap up. It's nice and tight here, and then right down here is normal. I just need to push the quarter out right here. What I'm trying to do is get back behind here and get this splash shield off, and then get some sort of either right angle iron or something, or just a flat bar. Go back behind here and just push all this out, just right inside this edge, and see if I can just rock it all back out. And then I'll just put a few little pins if I have to, but I think I can at least get the gist of it out. Bulk of the dent that just wrapped it around, it's not really damaged that much. It's mostly just wrapped around this way. I just got to pull this out, get the gap to close up at the door, then I'll worry about the body work after that, but I'm going to try to get the shape back to it. I'll go ahead and get this set up. Alright, I've got it up on a jack stand and got the wheel off now. I noticed the other day, I didn't notice this at first, but this control arm back here's bent. That's supposed to be straight. When this rear wheel got impacted, I guess that's what took that arm took the damage there. I've got another arm, a used one. This one up here looks alright, and the one at the bottom there, the longer one, it might have a very slight bow in it, maybe from a toe chain or something, but I really can't visually see a bend in it. I think it'll be fine as far as the alignment goes. I think they'll be able to align it, but that one right there has definitely got to be replaced. I'll show you the new one here in a minute, but I'm going to get this set up. I got to get this liner out of here, and then I'm going to get it set up in here, and I'm going to push this out using the subframe here. Probably right there at the mount, but it depends on where I need to get the ram as to what I pick, but somewhere in there on the subframe. Alright, I'm getting set up to push here. I want to put a plastic spreader up against the subframe just to protect it, but it was so tight, it was almost an exact fit. And this is the shortest section I've got here, and everything else just adds to the length. I've got about 1.5 inch wide piece of plate back there to push against, so it's not pushing in one spot at least. It's kind of spreading the load out over that area. That's about 2 or 3 inches long. And once I get it out just a little bit, I'll let off and I'll put a spreader back here in the back
just to protect that. I've got this attachment on the end here, it's got some V-grooves in it so it won't slip off this. If I took this off, then this thing would have slipped in there no problem, but it won't stay on here. I could probably stick it in this little notch here and it would stay, but this is more of a direct push on this. I don't want to bend that lip at all. Probably wouldn't, but got it in here now, so I'm just going to make a little bit of a gap. And we'll do a little push. Just a second, let me get you on the tripod where it's steady. What I'm trying to do is push this quarter out right in here where it's pushed in the furthest and close this door gap up. You can see how the gap's kind of wide right in there. I'm just trying to close that up. I'm going to try to do as much as I can from inside the quarter and then put any pins I've got to put out here to pull later on. I've got a little bit of pressure on it now and I saw it starting to move, so I'll move it a little bit more and watch that gap. Get this in the view where you can see me pushing on it. See, that moved it out a pretty good bit right there. We'll go a little bit further. I don't want to go too far. Yeah, all that's doing is pushing this section out. This is about as far as it's going to go. With this pressure on it, I'm going to go inside here and I'm going to tap that ridge you put in it inside the quarter. Crack the paint across this edge. So I'm going to go in there and tap that down a little bit, try to get some of that stress off, and maybe it'll push this out a little bit. Okay, what I did in here was I just took my my door skin hammer. I taped this up so I don't chip it. And I just tapped down right on that edge of the quarter right there. Because as it pushed it in, it cracked the paint here and it just had this up a little high. And tried to just fold this up along this edge. So I knocked that back down. It's about as close as I'm going to get it without pulling on the outside of the skin here on the quarter. Probably going to have to pull right along that body line a little bit to pull it out. I'm going to go up here. I'm going to push in a couple more places just to make sure I get all of this out that I can. I think down in here is okay. But I'm going to go up right in here and then maybe up here to roll it all the way out as far as it needs to go. I'm going to go measure from the other side, maybe from this edge of the subframe on the other side out to the outer edge of the quarter to make sure I've got it out as far as it needs to go. I don't want to just eyeball it and then leave it in the wrong place. I'm going to measure at least to something to make sure I've got it in the right place, and then I'll do the body work on this here, but this has to be out. And then I'm going to have to flatten this where it kinked it, just flatten that lip back out where it's spot welded. Okay, I did a comparative measurement from basically this edge of this part of the bracket in here out to the area where this spot weld is, right there. That's about 13 7/8. I've got it right around there, maybe a little bit, maybe a 16th further out, but close as I can get it. I don't even know that would be an exact measurement anyway from the factory. Just measuring to that one point, but I've got it at least in the right neighborhood. All I'm left with is this area right in here that's a little bit low. As you can see, that's dented and that's dented. I'm going to try to put some studs right on the edge. Just put 4 or 5 studs along this edge. Grab those with the stud buddy and just pull out. Try to pull this corner out. Same thing right up here. And then I'll put 1 or 2 in this area. And I may need 1 right in there. I don't know yet. Depends on what this edge turns out like. This had a little bit of a bow to it just from this getting kinked. So I've tapped all that in, got that pretty close. So I'll have a little bit of filler in this area and just a little up here. I'll have a little bit on the door. I'm not going to worry about the door just yet. It's in the right place. I'm using it to just match the quarter to it, and I'll put a little filler in it later. Right now I'm going to go ahead and just grind the paint off this edge. I'm going to try to stay within the area that I could get it painted with the door on it and not have to spray in the jamb. So I'm going to make sure I stay right on the edge and then further out this way. I don't want to go any further into the jamb than I have to. I'll put some studs on that and just pull that out, see where I end up. Alright, I've got 8 studs on it. Body line runs right between these 2 groups. I may put 1 right on that peak whenever I get done pulling, if I need to pull that peak up any higher. I'm going to go ahead and just start pulling with the stud buddy, see where I can get it All right, I've got a block of wood in the jamb. I can't use this to pry against. I've got to go in this direction so I can grab more than one pin at a time. If I pry against this, it's just going to push that back in. So I've got a block of wood right in here in the jamb just to kind of extend the jamb out. And I'm using that to pull against. That's what seems to be working. I'm just going to have to go from the outside in towards the damage. Just slowly pull and pull two at a time. I've got the jamb taped up too so I don't damage it with this wood. I'm just going to pull on it. I'm not going to jerk on it. I'm just going to pull on two at a time, work my way down. These grouped together where I can pull on the first two, and then I'll go to the second and third one. Helps to pull more than one at a time so you don't pull a high spot, and that'll actually pull that force across more of the distance and pull it out without ripping the stud off. Give it one more tug here in the middle on both of these, and I'll see where I am. Alright, it's fairly close at the top here, but I'm going to have to run some more studs down a little further. The damage actually goes down further than I thought it did, so I'm going to put 2 or 3 here. Pull that out. I'm going to have to go back to these and pull a little harder on those. I'll be back when I got it pulled all the way out. Alright, I've gone as far as I can go. The stud buddy broke in half on me. Right there. It looks like there's some kind of flaw in the casting. We really wasn't pulling that hard on it. That attaches to that area right there. It just snapped. So I had to go back to just the regular slide hammer like this. That attaches to the stud. So essentially did the same thing, but ended up putting 5 studs across here just to get a little bow out of it. Because it matches the door. The door is basically flat right there in that area. I've got it 90% there. There's no way to get it all the way anyway with what I've got, so I'm just going to be putting fiberglass over this whole area since I've got studs here. So I'm going to grind all these down. I got one little hole there that pulled off. So I'll fill that in and I'll just build up this edge with fiberglass and go over this area, and then I'll just pretty much sand basically all of it off except what I need to leave right along the edge to just build it up slightly. And a little bit here to get it level, and then I'll put regular body filler over it to finish it off. But it's so close now, you really wouldn't even probably notice it once I get the paint on it, but I'm going to build it up and get it flush with the door. It's too late to grind all this off now, but I know that I've got it where I'm going to leave it. So I'm going to go ahead and change out this control arm. Here's the used one I got for it. Goes right back in here. You can see how it's bent on that one right there. Go ahead and change that out while I've got the wheel off, and need to just touch up some areas in here where I put some minor scratches in it with the ram, and that way I can put this liner back in it and get the wheel back on it.